Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Barb Halpin. I am the Boulder County Staff Liaison for the Emergency Services Grant Program Advisory Committee. And tonight is August 26, 2025. We do our kickoff or our reorganization meeting in August so that we can kick off with our Fall Fire Protection District grant round starting in September. So the first order of business, and I'll stop sharing there, is to welcome our new member. But before we do that, before I introduce Colin, I've asked Dennis to join us. Dennis Whalen has been with the committee since the very beginning, as have others of you. He was brave enough to sign up to be the chair the first year when we were literally building the plane as we were flying it. And I just wanted Dennis to have Dennis is going to be leaving us for other volunteer opportunities. And I just wanted him to have an opportunity to let us know what he's going to be doing in his spare time.
Relaxing.
Come on, you told me your ambitious plans.
Yeah, I'm on the board of the Hour Center here in Longmont now. Plus, I volunteer there on occasion, and that's taking up a lot of my energy. So,
Yeah, for those who are not aware, the Hour Center is kind of the main organization in Longmont and surrounding areas for supporting food security, homelessness. What other areas do they sort of help cover?
they provide breakfast Monday through Friday, year round, and lunch 365 days a year.
All right.
And
Well, I've already told Dennis I'm going to sign up for one of those shifts because someone's got to keep an eye on you, Dennis.
that would be fine. They can always use more volunteers, and boy, they have a lot of them.
That's good. I'm really glad to hear that because that's a hard schedule to keep up all year long.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Dennis, thank you again for all your service. We will miss you, but I know you'll be close by.
Yep.
And you're welcome to stay on as long as you want this meeting, but you're also welcome to go off if you have other things to do.
I just want to say thanks, Dennis. You really did a lot for the committee, and we wouldn't be here today without, the foundation you helped to lay. So thank you for your service.
Thanks, Marie.
Thanks for helping get us off. Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis, for your lifetime of volunteering. This man was a hardcore volunteer in NED and had done so many things. So I think his expertise is building the plane as it gets flown.
Hopefully someday you'll be piloting a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great. Again, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Okay.
So on to our newest member, Colin Gray is joining us tonight. He was just appointed this morning. So Colin, I greatly appreciate your being able to react so quickly. I gave Colin a little bit of a heads up, but until the commissioners officially appoint, we were a bit at the whim. So Colin, do you want to let's go ahead. We're gonna do some introductions. Maybe what we'll do, let me share my screen real quick. Maybe instead of making Colin go first, we'll have him go last. So he'll get to meet all of you first. So what I like to do is, I know many of you have gone through this before. It's a new year, new kickoff. So if you could give your name and the position you hold on the committee, something about, your past or how it relates to this committee, and then kind of what inspired you to apply to serve on the committee. And if you don't want to share that, you can just share a fun hobby that you like. So I'm going to go in that list, which is alphabetical by last name. So Lynette, I'm going to put you on the spot first. If you could.
I had a feeling. Hello, my name is Lynette Anderson. I am an at-large member and I just got officially reappointed for 3 years today, it sounds like, or yesterday, whenever. So my history, I was a law enforcement park ranger here in Boulder County and the city of Boulder for about 20 years. So know a lot of, the natural areas and lived in Lyons for a while. And now I work as a mental health co-responder, and I am stationed up in Nederland, which is where I'm at right now. And so pretty much I've seen and experienced and done a lot of search and rescue and fire and all that and medical and interacted with agencies that do those things. So that kind of inspired me to get a little more involved with this committee, mostly because I know that the mountains don't always get represented, and sometimes people just don't know necessarily what goes on up here, who all's doing what. So I just wanted to kind of be a voice for some of those folks that just community members that use these areas. So.
Great. Well, thanks and welcome back on, Lynette, and also Maria, who we'll get to as we go down the list. So Cynthia, Baki, you're next.
My name is Cynthia Baki. I'm a veteran. I've lived in Ward for 23 years. Ward is below Brainerd Lake. And I worked for the town in Nederland for almost 10 years doing land use. Really worked hand in hand with the fire department, even though they were sort of a rogue state, because they're not actually part of the government. They're a separate entity, but I worked hand in hand with them, trying to kind of close loopholes, always involving them on any land use and building and business things to make sure that they know what's going on. And they're doing, we're connecting on any inspections in the building and all those kind of things. And what interested me in this board is after, getting out of, I had been the clerk of ward and then I did Ned for 10 years. It's nice to be outside of the government, but also working in a capacity. What a wonderful experience this board has been, because we get to review these applications and award things that people really need. So it's super satisfying. Also, I think as Lynette said, I'd like to echo, the mountains don't always get representation. We have thought about fire and wildfire and structure fires for a long time. I think that really lit up in the city when the Marshall Fire happened. But I kind of feel like wildfire and structure fire are like my Vietnam. Like I think about it all the time, and the risks that we have up here. Whenever we did stuff in Ned, it was always like, yes, really super high risk area, and so just getting a lot of that understanding and supporting these rural fire departments. They do so much for us, and it's often done so humbly. So it's a way to give back to these communities and be able to grant them their dreams for a season. So it's been a great opportunity. I'm an at-large member and I joined, I think, last fall.
Yes, great. Thanks for that. Okay, we're going to skip over Colin and go to Ben, another one of our early founders.
Hey there, Ben Hogan. I'm a volunteer ski patroller and firefighter here in Boulder County, so interface a lot with the type of groups that this committee supports, and wanted to get involved just because of that. Yeah, I deal with this stuff on a not quite every day, but our department's now averaging a call every other day basis. So really, these interact with on a weekly basis, things we use on a weekly basis. And I'm definitely a younger, boots on the ground member here and happy to share those perspectives with this committee.
Great. Thanks, Ben. And Ben has been our chair for the past year. Let's see. I don't see Doug, so let's go to Maria.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Maria Kuntz. I am our accessibility for the community member. I just renewed as well. I got the notification this morning. So I was renewed for a 3-year term along with Lynette. Um, let's see, and I live west of 93 in South Boulder. So a little about me, I've worked in higher education for about 15 years, and I worked in nonprofits before that. And one of the specialties or focus in my career is inclusive marketing and communications. I have a graduate degree in international and intercultural communication, and I just started my doctorate, and it's in leadership for educational equity. So equity, accessibility, really in all the realms, like the 30, 40 plus ways that we think about identity. I think about it quite holistically. While some are kind of more common to think about, um, like race, gender, ethnicity, ability, but there are quite a few things that impact someone's ability to access resources, services, enjoy the outdoors. So that's the professional part of my life. I'm an avid outdoors person, mountaineer, skier, really you name it, I'll do it outside. I've done 39 of the 58 14ers. I'm going to do 2 this weekend. I have a sibling who's had some search and rescue, and I'm a scout leader. So I've led a lot of trips with youth in the outdoors. So I have a really deep respect for what it means to stay safe and for what it takes when things don't go well. I've done WUFA a few times. I have friends in search and rescue in the area in Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue. So, and then I was evacuated 3 times, or I wasn't evacuated for Marshall Fire, but I was evacuated twice after that. And I could see the fire from my house. So when the call came out, I just happened to open the email and I thought, well, this is something I'm really interested in. It's deeply impacting me. I have a lot of experience in the outdoors. It brings me a lot of joy, and I want to create and be part of creating safe community and safe recreation spaces and keeping people safe when things go wrong, unfortunately. So I really appreciate both sides of the work this committee does because, the fall we focus on fire and fire rescue. In the spring we focus on search and rescue. So I'm happy to be here and starting the beginning of a new 3-year term. So thanks.
Thanks, Maria, and thanks to both you and Lynette for re-signing up. We're really glad to keep your expertise on our board. Is it Harry? Looks like you're next.
Hi, I'm Harry. I'm not sure what my position is here, but I live in North Boulder, so
You're
you
not at
know,
large. You're at
I'm at
large.
large. I'm a retired emergency physician. I've done a fairly large amount of relief work around the world in my career and really enjoyed that and really liked going to places that other people didn't want to go to. I've done a moderate amount of volunteer work here in the dirty parts of Meals on Wheels, cooking in the kitchen, the community food bank, stocking. I do a lot of volunteer work at the airport, and I really like the medevac side of things and the air search and rescue. That's something that I spend a lot of time as a liaison between the airport and the community and the city government. I do own property up 4 Mile Canyon that we've owned for 25 years. And so we interact every year with 4 Mile Fire District to do fire mitigation and clearing. And that's been a yearly part of that group. And so I've known that organization for quite some time. And I've seen so many people come and go through there, and they just got a new one, which is great. And they're just getting ready to start again. But that's my connection to both Boulder and to the county.
That's right. Thanks so much for that. Okay, Rick, and then
Hi,
Jody.
my name is Rick Scheingold. I live in beautiful Gold Hill, Colorado, which is just at the top of Sunshine Canyon. I've lived here since 1997 and just think it's the best place on earth. Recently retired in March after a long career opening and managing food service operations around the world. And I currently volunteer for my local agency and work closely with adjacent agencies. I am a first responder, both for fire, cars, and anything else that might happen in the district. I represent the former member of an agency. I believe that is my. I wasn't sure if Dennis's got given away or what happened to his, so I wasn't sure if I'm current or former. Um, and happy to be serving on the committee and look forward to this next round of applications.
Great. Thanks so much, Rick. And yeah, we actually had slotted Dennis into the Eastern Plains when he moved to Longmont. So you are the reigning former firefighter and EMT guy. Jody.
Hi, everyone. You'll have to use your imagination. My camera is off. I am driving down I-25 in a lot of rush hour traffic. Headed out of town tomorrow, so I had to drop off the dog at a friend's house. But I am Jody Silva. I am probably the second newest now member of the committee. I thought at one point I was filling the East Boulder County slot, and Barb, I believe that you moved me, but to what I cannot recall officially. So you'll have to tell us all.
You are our recreation person. You represent the recreation field, and you can explain why.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure what the official title of that was. I live in Louisville currently, but I have been living in and out of Boulder County for the last 12, maybe 13 years since I moved to Colorado. I am filling the recreation slot because I am in the ski industry, and I've been in the ski industry since I moved to Colorado. I lived in Boulder for a short time and then got a job of a lifetime of heading up the marketing for Winter Park Ski Resort. I did that for about 4 years, and I have a home up there. And then I moved back down to Boulder, to Louisville, to work for the corporate organization that owns Winter Park and several of the other ski resorts as the head of brand and creative marketing for Icon Pass. So I'm a ski pass pusher, if you will. But I am very immersed in the mountain community. First living up in Winter Park, serving on a lot of committees that bring the town of Winter Park and Grand County, working in close partnership with Winter Park and also the city of Denver that technically owns Winter Park Ski Resort. And obviously we know that the ski industry is a very operationally driven business despite being in marketing. And with Icon Pass, bringing the mountains to everyone and making them accessible to everyone is really important to me in terms of how we market Icon Pass. Personally, I'm a big outdoor enthusiast. There's not a sport in the mountains that I don't engage in and I don't love. So I'm a big user of all the open space in Boulder County and in the surrounding mountains. And I've been somewhat impacted by a lot of the emergencies that we've had in Boulder County over the years. I lost my car in the Boulder flood. I was evacuated for the Marshall Fire in Louisville, and my house in Fraser has been on close watch for several wildfire evacuations over the years. So, I really appreciate all of the emergency services that are available to us as a collective community, and I recognize how important they are. And so pairing that with just my love of the outdoors and appreciation for all of the open space that Boulder County takes such good care of was really my inspiration for serving on this committee. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jody. And yes, you're right. You are, other than Colin, who we're about to get to know better, you are our next newest member. I've really learned some new things about everybody. So thank you for being so open and sharing. Colin, why don't you go ahead and then also I'm going to get to Commander Nick Goldberger, who's joined us, but let's get through the committee first and hear more about Colin.
Sure. Wonderful. Thanks. And yeah, great to meet all of you. It was really interesting to hear your backgrounds and experience that you bring to the committee here. My name is Colin Gray. My day job, I'm a certified financial planner, partner with a national RA firm that's located. We have quite a bit of activity here in Denver, Louisville area. I live in the town of Superior. My family and I moved here about 3 years ago from Louisville, Kentucky, which I still have to get used to saying. Louisville, Colorado, Louisville, Kentucky. But we moved here, but in kind of my past community in Kentucky, I served as the chairman of our corporate giving program, doing a lot of kind of inbound grant work, similar to what this board does, with more of a focus on health and families. That was the kind of mandate or charter of that committee, but spent about 5 years in that space of volunteering time in the grant space. I also have served as the treasurer of a startup botanical garden. So kind of the opposite side of that, where we were trying to win grants and writing those. So I really appreciated hearing from Barb that one of the things that this group has done is made that process more, I would say, seamless, less information, less cumbersome, as that can be pretty burdensome. I would say what kind of prompted me to reach out and serve on this. It's similar to, I think, Jody. I saw an email and thought that while I don't maybe have the experience on the emergency services and fire side, my finance background and kind of grant giving, this would be a great area to get involved and give back to the community as we're getting settled in here. I think I might have mentioned I have two kids, a kindergartner and a second grader, both in Boulder Valley School District at El Dorado. And so it's been great to be in that community, but also learning about a lot of the folks. We moved here after the Marshall Fire in Superior, but have heard a lot and made a lot of friends that were severely impacted by those, lost their homes. And so hoping to help do what we can here.
Great. Well, thank you and welcome aboard. I think it's going to be really nice to have a completely kind of fresh set of eyes, not only, pretty new to Boulder County, but in your grants and financial experience was really helpful, I know, to me and as well as the rest of the committee. So, well, I think it's really obvious we have an amazing committee here, so much depth, so much breadth of experience, and the county's in really good hands with you all. I'd like to move now to introducing our Special Operations Commander, Nick Goldberger. And Nick, I'm glad to see you in a room because you're usually the one racing down some highway when I'm on the phone with you.
I made it home, so I'm good.
Good. Jody, you be careful, but usually Nick's my problem child, is trying to keep his eyes on
Can
the
you guys
road.
hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Perfect. Well, hey, thank you for inviting me to give a quick intro to you. I'll give you a little, I'm going back in time just to kind of work your way up because I am an outdoor kind of guy. I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. In high school and college, I'm a Badger, where people on spring break and winter break would always go to the beach. I don't know why. I always came out skiing and did the mountain thing. So that's where it started for me. In the late 80s, actually early, let's say 90s, I moved out to Colorado, moved out to Vail, played there for about 4 or 5 years. During that time, I was also on a Forest Service crew. We'd play out in the wilderness and building bridges and so forth. And they also spent a year, they invited me to be on a hotshot crew. A hotshot crew, I don't know what you know, is we travel around the entire United States for the big fires and put out fires. So I was a Sawyer on a team for that year. Began law enforcement in '93 with the Dane County Sheriff's Office, which is in Madison, Wisconsin. Did that for 3.5 years. Then I moved out here with my now wife in '97, and I've been with the Sheriff's Office since that time. In my tenure here, since I've been here for about 28 years, I've done many positions, whether it's SWAT team firearms, but 3 stints with the Drug Task Force as a detective, a sergeant, and a commander. But when I was a sergeant in 2013, I was the sergeant for the town of Lyons. So certainly went through the flood and the experiences with the town, worked very closely with the town. I've worked through a myriad of fires that we've had, to include the Marshall as one of our most recent, as well as Stone Canyon up in Lyons, again, having some stuff up there. So I have a lot of history with that. I am, or actually I was having a position with the ODM, Office of Disaster Management, as an ESF position. And an ESF position is one of the many positions that when the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, is open and there's a live incident where people need resources and things, I'm in the safety position where I help law and fire get the folks the things that they need, as well as working with other agencies to, whether it's I don't know, not disaster management, but debris cleanup, anything, the resources to get people help. Those are the people I work with very closely. And one of the people on the committee was talking about the ski stuff. I also last week went out to Glenwood Springs for Colorado Ski Country Sheriff's Conference, reference all of the different the large ski areas, also some of the sheriffs there, working with search and rescue for all those mountains, and how we work with law enforcement to search and rescue for community members who, whether go out of bounds or get hurt. So I have a lot of information there. So that's a quickie right there on a little bit about me, but my heart is outdoors. My position for special operations is emergency services, which does a lot of the rescues and so forth. I work with the fire crew, which does all the mitigation as well as preventing and fighting fires in the county. I oversee as well as the parks deputies, as well as the mountain deputies for everything they do. And I work closely, and I just started about a month and a half ago. So now I get to work closely with the 26 different fire protection districts slash departments in our county, which is numerous. So I will be in starting relationships with all of them and helping them out in any way we can. Whew, there we go.
Yeah, good job.
So
Thanks, Nick.
So I'm very happy to work with all of you. Barb, you can share my cell number, email, anything. If anyone needs to get a hold of me, cell's always the best bet. Don't do my office number, phone number, because who knows where I am. So email and cell's always the best.
That's great. And for so the sheriffs that we work, obviously I'm in the county commissioner's office. They're the ones that sort of handle the money part of this, but the sheriff's office is so vital to just determining kind of how all of this money is distributed. But the sheriff's office, like Nick, is so busy, you're doing so many different things at once that we like to bring, Nick in as a consultant, certainly as we get all the applications in from the fire districts. We'll ask Nick to go through them, kind of give us his feedback. And he's also available to us if we have specific questions about, does this group, what do they really do, and that kind of thing. So thanks, Nick, for joining us. I know you've got to run, but we'll be seeing you soon.
You got it all. Thanks all for the work and the volunteering and helping out everybody. You all take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.
So those of you who've been on the last 2 years, we worked with Commander Randy Wilbur for these 2 years. The sheriff's office has a practice of mixing up and sort of rotating their commanders in different positions about every 3 years. So Commander Wilbur's moved on he picked night operations. So he works now from like 3 o'clock to 11 o'clock most days. And Nick is filling in for him. So, Nick is filling in. So Nick will be working with us now, but Randy's still, it's hard to let go of this. So he'll be helping us out in the background as well. I'm going to share my screen. I think we got to everybody. Doug Hurst is the member's not here tonight. He works for the City of Lafayette Fire Department. He is actually on call at the station tonight. So he had emailed me earlier and said he would get on unless he was called out. So I might assume that he got called out. But we'll meet Doug in another meeting. Let's see here. How do I do this? So I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly, but this is to kind of because it's our reorganization meeting, it's to give anybody who's listening on the other side a background, and also for our newest member. So the purpose of this committee is to decide how the grant portion of the emergency services sales tax is distributed. And we do 2 rounds a year. These are actual pictures, photos of things that have been purchased with grants in the last 2 years. New hoses, I forget what they call these, a little UTV to be able to get into more remote areas. This is I think a CPR machine, new firefighting gear for hygiene, a new truck, and I believe the equipment on the bottom left is for, oh, what is it? Somebody help me out here.
That's the
It's,
stabilizing, like
Vehicle stabilization.
thank you. So if there's an accident, if there's a vehicle on top of a bicycle or something like that, they can extract an injured party. So the main purpose of the emergency services ballot measure, which was passed in 2022 after the Marshall Fire, was to fund emergency services in Boulder counties, especially those groups that are underfunded, like many of the mountain and rural fire districts. And eligible expenses that come from that can be spent by the revenues of the tax are these items: capital assets, operational costs, supplemental funding to what the fire districts already, their money sources, ambulance services, wildland firefighting, and trailhead safety services. So these are pretty broad, and this committee has, in the past kind of looked at things, do they fit into these categories? Do they not? But so this is sort of our compass to decide whether an application falls into one of these categories. So currently the tax is 0.1%, which is 10 cents on every $100 that people pay for sales tax. It generates about $9 million a year for the first 5 years. It'll cut in half starting in 2028, and I'll go into why that is. So for the first 5 years, it's going to generate $45 million, and then it'll go down to about half of that. There's a new search and rescue facility that's being built on top of our old one, which was donated to us by the Postal Service in East Boulder. And that facility has been outgrown, it's aged. So we're basically building a brand new search and rescue facility that will be occupied by Rocky Mountain Rescue, but it will also be available for search and rescue recreation groups. It'll have a nice meeting room, training, that kind of thing. There's a small picture of it in the top left corner. So when that's built, hopefully by the end of 2026, that'll be available for all search and rescue groups to take advantage of. And then once that's built, we don't need the money for that anymore. And that's why the tax is cutting in half. We also do that the tax pays for some annual support, which is ambulance services, firefighter and EMS training, firefighters, open space rangers, those that have an annual ongoing cost are captured in another part of the fund. And then the area that you all focus on is the grant. So it's kind of a 3-part tax right now: the facility, the ongoing programs, and then the grant fund, which I'm really pleased that that everybody decided that we should have an outside expert, subject matter expert group really decide and determine how that money is distributed. So again, here's a little bit bigger. This is a concept of what the search and rescue building will look like. It'll have bays below for their trucks and equipment, and then meeting rooms and sleeping quarters, kitchen, everything on the top level. If you were heading east, Pearl Street, past 30th, it's there. It's kind of tucked away and hidden, but Rocky Mountain Rescue is responsible for the south part of Boulder County. They go out to the Flatiron City open space. The other main search and rescue group is Boulder Emergency Squad. Boulder Emergency Squad goes to the north parts of Boulder County. So that's kind of how they split it up. So this is just a summary of all that's been awarded for the past 4 rounds of grants, past 2 years. To the fire protection districts, we've given out $3 million to 14 fire districts, and the Boulder County Firefighters Association. The examples have been radios, fire station repairs, trucks, rescue apparatus, etc. And then in the spring for the search and rescue agencies, we've given a total of 1.2 million to 10 organizations. And it's been everything from dog radio collars to first aid kits on ski patrol, pagers, training, and capital improvements. So it's pretty impressive. This is just going to keep adding up every year. This is just a breakout by type. Total almost 4.2 million. Again, actual things that we've funded. And then this breaks it out by the fire districts, search and rescue, and then trail and trailhead safety. So by design, we give a greater amount to the fire protection districts. That's kind of what the agreement was when the ballot language was written. And it's been most grant cycles have some have been competitive, but these seem to be the right breakout for the money that has been given out. And I'll skip that. Let me stop there. Does anyone have any questions about the purpose of the tax and the role of this committee? I want to make sure I'm okay. Again, it's really extremely valuable that the commissioners ultimately approve the funding, but with only one exception, have they pushed back on one item that was recommended, and they decided not to fund it because it wasn't really fully baked, fully ready. But mostly they take what this committee recommends, and they know you're the experts, and they're happy to rubber stamp what this committee recommends. So what we'd like to do tonight is just, I'm going to share my screen one more time. Just go over our meeting schedule. Our regular meeting time is the 4th Tuesday of the month. However, we take breaks, and we tend not to meet in November and December for the holidays. And then we also take off January, June, and July, because when we do the grant rounds, we usually have to add an extra meeting in there. So this is my proposed timeline for the fall grants. And I wanted to see if this works for people's schedules. We'll look quickly at the application questions in a moment, but mostly I just wanted to say that if you have comments and you don't get them tonight, you can send them to me by September 4th. And I'm going to finalize the application next Friday. What I'd like to do is open up fall applications right after the week of Labor Day, leave it open for about 4 to 4.5 weeks. Have the grants come back, be due by October 14th, and then give you all about 10 days to score them. Do our in-person meeting. We always like to do our first real application review period in person. So I've picked Tuesday, October 28th, but that could be moved if we want, if that's not convenient for all of you. It is the normal meeting date, but again, we can be flexible on that. We usually meet either a week or 2 weeks after the first session. It gives me time to go out and ask fire districts questions that you relay to me. It gives time for us to sort of let the initial discussion bake in, and then you come back for a second meeting and finalize your recommendations, and we do that virtually. So I picked the 2 weeks later. The one problem about November 4th is that as a county, employee, I'm involved in elections, and so I cannot meet November 4th, which is election day, but any other date really would work. After you all make your final recommendations, I take them to the Board of County Commissioners at a business meeting, and they give their final say on it, and then we start funding those. So this would give you November, December, and January off. I'll stop there. Does anybody approve? Does anybody want a motion to either approve or consider changing any of these dates? Do they mostly work for you?
Can you pop it up one more time?
You bet. So the main dates I really want you to focus on are when you would be it's kind of this section, when you'd be reviewing applications, getting together in person for the first date, getting together virtually for the second date, and then I take it to the county commissioners after that.
Barb, I may be out of town on November 11th, but don't
Okay.
change it just for me. I can have my rankings in before that.
Okay. Is anybody else? I mean, again, we've moved that date before to a different day of the week. It
These
really
dates look
isn't.
good to me, Barb, and I would move that we accept them as noted, as listed.
I second that.
Okay. Works for the majority of folks. And you know, Harry, you can always, as long as you're available for that first meeting, you can always leave me with your thoughts for that second one. That would be great. Okay, so moved. We will go ahead and adopt those dates. I just realized one piece of business I skipped right over was to nominate a chair and a vice chair. And now that we have Doug back on, we have the full committee here, so that's great. This is a completely open process. Ben, you've been our chair. Doug, you've been our vice chair. Ben, if you want to serve another year as chair, you'd be more than welcome to do so. If you want to pass that baton on to somebody else and somebody else is interested in picking up that baton. I know this is a little kind of awkward, but unfortunately we have to we have to kind of get through you know, who's gonna lead the committee until next August, essentially.
Is anyone else interested in it?
No,
No, you did a great job, dude. I think you should do it again, Ben.
I second that.
All right.
Okay.
Here,
All right. Ben.
There you have it.
Great. Well, thanks, Ben, for being willing to do that again. I know it's a little extra work on your part. Doug, does anybody else want to serve as vice chair?
No, I need to do it.
Doug, that was a yes, right? Your head went up and down.
Hey, man, that's what I get for throwing Ben under the bus, huh? Karma came back at me. I got
Coming
it.
with me.
Fair enough.
All right. All right. Well, this is great. We'll have some continuity going into the next year. And
Thank you
certainly,
both.
yeah, thank you both for serving in those positions. Okay. Well, then that last piece of business, I think, is to look at our questions, and I'll share those. As those of you who have walked through this with us before, you know that we've refined these over time. We've had 4 grant rounds to tweak them to both make I think their first round with fire departments. We decided the second round we were going to kind of pull back a little bit on all the information that we asked for. So we simplified it. The section A, this is stuff the county needs, so I don't really have much flexibility there. This is in order for them to get a grant from us, they need to provide just basic organizational information. It's the section B that are our questions. And we always kind of ask for them to name their proposal, to give us a really, to give us a dollar amount, to give a brief summary, you know, no more about 50 to 75 words. It just quickly says what it is. And then we go into a little bit more depth. what are the goals? What do they specifically hope to do with the money? Let's see, how does it basically qualify for a grant, given those parameters that we all have to abide by in the ballot language? One question that we added from last time was, is your project ready to go? Is it shovel ready? And that was because we had one application that was problematic in that it was a good idea, but it had too many hurdles to get over before it was going to be ready to be funded. So we've decided to ask, is it ready to go? And that doesn't mean this committee can only recommend programs that are ready to go. It just means that we want to know, is it ready, and make some decisions based on that. We have found that it's good to ask, are they asking for the full amount, or do they also have some extra funds from other sources that they're going to add to this? In the case of a competitive pool where we can't fund everything, we ask them, the state, kind of, if they got partial funding, how would that change their request? The question about sustainability, if somebody asks for like a piece of equipment, like a truck, some kind of a fire engine, how will they keep it up? How will they maintain it? Because these grants are one-time grants. We don't provide 10 years of oil changes, 10 years of mechanical repair and that kind of thing. So we just ask them to tell us, how are you going to keep that piece of equipment up and running? And then, because it is our policy to talk about equity, we always ask a question about how they would look at, historically underserved community members. How do we make people feel welcome on our trails and safe? And how do we make, emergency services feel available to everybody, is essentially what we're trying to get at with that.
Hey Barb,
Yeah.
we're on B9, right?
Yeah.
So I've been thinking a lot about this because I would say the majority of the answers we get are things along the lines of, we serve everyone, we're emergency responders, we have an ethical code to serve everyone, we don't discriminate. I kind of want to see if, like, can we add something or adjust that question to say, like, go beyond your legal obligation to serve everyone.
I appreciate that. And I've struggled with this too, because especially with the fire districts, I do think that, it's a very established role. It's very much, we show up, we get called out, we show up. We don't discriminate upon who we're going to provide services for. I do think when we get to sort of the search and rescue and the recreation groups, there's, this question becomes more, is your group actively looking for ways to be more inclusive? I would like,
I
Maria,
don't
if I
know. I
could,
would say, yeah, I would say even with fire though, Barb, just before we say, like, maybe it doesn't apply, and I'm not a firefighter clearly, and I know there are a few of you here, but what does it look like to go to build community and build trust and relationships outside of the emergency? Like, does the organization have, even once a year, are they, can they talk about where they're showing up at community events, or that they have someone who does some amount of community outreach? And if they're not doing it, they could say that and take it as a challenge to think about where they might expand their reach beyond their emergency requirement, because collaborations and relationships and trust and great systems are built outside of moments of high stress.
I appreciate that so much, Maria. And I'm so glad that you are really our guide in this discussion, this arena. I'm wondering if maybe you and I can work offline and come up with something.
And
Ben has a hand up, so
I kind of agree and back that, Maria, because at a minimum, they should be responding to everybody, right? I mean, everybody responds to everybody, but even in my role, we're trying to figure out how are we more inclusive? How are we not? How to go above and beyond. And I think, Barb, what you said about what we ask the search and rescue groups, I don't see why we couldn't put that on here. And I think it just helps, I think, agencies think a little bit more deeper and maybe articulate a little bit more about how they are serving people in their community. Even just in Netherlands, if they say older adults or people with disabilities or national night out, I mean, there's a few things that they can kind of throw out there. I don't think it would be terrible to make them think about that a little bit more and write it down and identify it.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I
Lynette,
want
I
to just,
agree. Oh,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I third that. I feel like there's something to be said for authenticity a bit, right? Like, I mean, there's the legal requirements, and then there's the offline efforts that people make, and that ties back to authenticity in terms of partnerships and inclusivity and those types of things. And you made me think of, and I won't call out names by any means, but you make me think of the last round in the spring, and there was a grant submission that it was like, well, we have someone on our staff that speaks Spanish, and we're going to go set up in an event center, and and I think one of the things that concerned us was the lack of authenticity, and is that enough in order to be successful in what they were trying to accomplish with the grant money. And so I do think having some additional insight into their efforts would really go a long way. So
That's very helpful. I'm wondering from any of the firefighter representatives, I know that there's been sort of quiet, not pushback on this question, but maybe some uncomfortability. Is there a way that we can present this question without feeling like we're trying to do a gotcha, put them in a bad spot, but at the same time, as people have recommended, get people outside of their normal bubble? Because maybe
Barb,
there are people in their community who are afraid if they call 911, they're going to get some kind of different response. Who wanted to jump in? Was that Ben?
yeah, sorry, it's me.
Oh, hi, Doug.
Yeah, I would say it's 100% fair question, and I think one of my chief kind of put it is the vast majority of people who pay for emergency services will never use your service, right, in the emergency realm. So how do you provide them an interaction if they're not going to use it in the emergency setting, to not necessarily get their money's worth, but essentially get an interaction with the emergency services that they've essentially paid for. So I think it's a fair question, right? Like, what are we doing out there to get out into the public, right? To be seen, make them comfortable that, like if they are call 911 for whatever reason, that they don't feel intimidated, right? And I think it's those public interactions or events that you hold that accomplish that. So
Great. Thanks so much for that input.
Barb, can I add something?
Yeah, please, of course.
I've ribbed the guys in Ward, because a lot of fire departments have answered that question like, well, we help everybody. And I've tried to say, look to your ranks. You have two gay women on there. One was from, came here from Colombia. Like you can talk about, the amount of seniors that we have in our community. You can talk about a lot of those things, the people that you serve in this community, and that you go up to Brainerd and you serve those folks, but you can dig into a little bit of that stuff. And I think the standard sort of we help everybody is like, sure you do, of course you do, but how does that look? You can talk about it in these grants. So I've kind of ribbed him about it, like you can fill that in a little bit more, like tell us more about the makeup of your fire department and who you're serving and who's in our community and what those percentages are. That's kind of important stuff for us to see and to know, because not everybody knows that. So, please feel free to flesh that out. And they're like, yeah, okay, Cynthia. But, I think it's harder for some of the mountain fire departments, because they're just like, oh, this question. And it's like, look at who you have and then talk about that. That's perfectly fine. That's what the question is asking. Who do you serve? Who's on that, who is in that group that you're serving? So share it. So I don't know if there's a way to kind of condense that, folks, to help them understand that's what we're looking for, so that we don't just get kind of the cardboard answers, but really allows us to understand the community that everyone serves more, and that they're doing, basic internet searches if they don't know the information.
Yeah, I think if you don't rewrite the question, you're going to get that answer, right?
Okay.
It
Yeah, good advice.
specifically asks what in your grant is going to help you pretty much address DEI. And it's like, well, if I'm applying for a fire truck, it allows me to go to anybody who calls. So I think if you don't change how the question is worded, you might get more of that.
I agree. I think our job is to get something that solicits beyond the normal boilerplate answer that we've been receiving, and try to, if we rank this as a 1 out of 3 thing, like everyone gets a 2, because nothing's really special to me that stood out. But we want to solicit a question that prompts that type of response that helps us as the committee differentiate those from who are doing these things. And I see, Harry, you've got a hand up as well.
So maybe a way to force them into a more descriptive answer that you're looking for is something like, in addition to serving anybody that calls, phrase it however you want, how does your group do community outreach outside of emergencies? And then, suddenly they can't just say, well, we serve everybody, because we've already said, I know you do that.
Right.
But it's like, well, what do you do above and beyond?
I like that. This has been an extremely helpful conversation, and thank you all for participating. Let me take a stab, given what you've shared with me. Let me take a stab at it. I can send it back out, and we can kind of wordsmith or provide more ideas. Lynette, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just I put in the chat. I wasn't sure if people are seeing the chat, but maybe adding in there. I mean, you could just word it as, tell us how you connect with your community. And that's kind of what we're all saying here. And that could be in addition to what's, maybe a little bit of wordsmithing with what's there now. But tell us how you connect with your community. And you can even add some examples. But, like National Night Out, Touch a Truck events, pancake breakfast. I mean, they all do it already. They just maybe don't know that that's what they're doing. And this is a nice time for them to be able to, acknowledge that and put it on paper. But maybe it's, how do you connect with your community? Or how do you envision connecting with your community with this, whatever it is?
Great. Because I do think if this group can help elevate that, just that kind of opening up the window a little bit more to, we haven't really thought about that because we do those things, we're supposed to do. I know that the interest is behind this money is to really serve all Boulder County residents, or in many cases, people visiting from out of town, like at Brainerd Lake or some of the other really popular trailheads. And just being, just following our own vision of being a very inclusive place. Great. Okay, so thanks for that. Does anybody else, before we end this conversation, does anybody else have anything to add along those lines? And I can maybe reach out to a few of you with some ideas about how to rewrite that with
I
some
love
specifics.
how Maria, when she was introducing herself and she talked about all these various aspects of like accessibility and all these different considerations. So I'd love to hear, her thoughts or some wordsmithing on that end from her, because she's speaking about touching with respect to connecting all these different elements of diversity. I think that was really awesome.
I agree. I mean, we set up the position that Maria holds as accessibility is sort of how to actually access trails if you were disabled or if you were older, making them safe for people. But I think that her role is really expanded because of her expertise and just the way of being able to enunciate and talk about so easily these concepts. Accessibility has become a much broader field, and that's because of you, Maria. And I really appreciate put some more on your shoulders, but I also appreciate that you are absolutely the right person to be in that role.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I'm happy to work with you, Barb, offline and wordsmith and bring something back for folks to weigh in on and give feedback on.
Great. Let's plan to do that then. So that kind of got us to the end of the list of questions.
Barb, I have one that I'd like people to consider to add off of the topic that we were just on, but in terms of the list of questions, one of the things that as the newbie and going through the first round of grants in the spring, one of the things that surprised me was the overlap in terms of the requests from grant submitters and the duplicacy of some of the services that are offered. And, thanks to all of you, like, you've got a lot of knowledge in that area, and like you were able to kind of unravel that, right? Like, for example, and I can't remember the specifics, but so and so asks for a drone, but then do they really need that drone because this other organization has a drone that gets sent out that all of Boulder County can access, and they are the ones that are going on the majority of the calls, as an example. And there were a handful of situations like that. And it might be helpful if maybe there's some sort of a question that gets at something along the lines of, who other, what other organization are you aware of that offers this type of service that you are suggesting you can provide with what you are submitting a grant request for? I think something along the lines of that. And then also, especially in the spring where there are a lot of smaller organizations that we're less familiar with, right? Like we think about like, there was the PT one, and then there was another one that I can't recall, but, sometimes the way that people can articulate what they do or who they are is by asking them, who is your direct competition isn't the right word. That's not the right tone for this, but like, what other organization provides the same services that you provide, right? And then sometimes that helps us better define what services the grant submitter is wanting to offer with the grant money, right? And again, that might be more relevant during the spring. But I do feel like those two insights are somehow related between the overlap and the duplicacy of requests and services that these organizations provide across the county. So I'll leave it at that and see what everyone else thinks.
Jody, are you trying to say like asking them like basically who's your audience, who do you serve, and what other organizations serve this audience?
Yeah, I mean, in a marketing nutshell, that was fantastic. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I see what I understand your speak.
I was trying to not sound like a marketer, so I'm like rambling on with words, but yeah, I mean, I think that would be helpful to all of us, because I felt like a good part of the conversation during the spring round of grants was around, well, what do they offer? Well, so and so offers this, and they do this, and this is also their territory. And we probably spent a good hour having those types of conversations. So is there a way to get at it a little bit more directly?
Ben, I'll jump in, but Ben, did you want to say something?
Yeah, it sounds like we're asking them to say what makes your service unique in Boulder County.
And we had that in, and I believe I accidentally dropped that. So I want to bring that back. We also we started off asking for like collaboration, can you partner?
Does it need to be unique? I mean, maybe the question is is this grant request in your services complementary, additive, or unique
Mhm.
to other services? Because some of them would be great if they are any of those.
Yeah, I
Great.
think that's a good way to put it, because it's not necessarily about just being unique, and it shouldn't always have to be unique, but I think understanding whether or not we're providing money to something that is already adequately served by another organization might require us, or might suggest that we reprioritize and put our money towards something else in an underserved area.
Cynthia, look like you want to say something, and I'm going to add something after you're done.
Barb, did you say, did we drop the question about sort of who do you liaise with? Like what other agencies are you, are you a liaison with that you're serving this area? So did we have that question? I feel like we did.
Yeah, we had, and I think it was actually the first year we had, kind of who could you combine your services with? A little bit of more like, can two or more agencies get together and share a resource? And we didn't really find a whole lot
How
of,
dare we?
but here's what I wanted to say is that I think this is a really important and a critical step for this committee to be taking now. There was a little bit of, there was 2 years of pent up, people who put this ballot language forward, the fire districts that help with the language. There was very much of a, we want to ask for our most important things first. We haven't had money to spend on these things. Our hoses are getting really old, or blah, blah, blah. And I think that the first two rounds, there was a little bit of a given of, you can ask, it's kind of like the Christmas wish list, you can ask for the toys you want, not to diminish what they're asking for, but just there was a bit of like, let's get that low hanging fruit paid for, because districts really need it and they put a lot of effort into getting this tax passed. I think now we're moving into really more strategic and prioritized. How do we try to not give everybody the same thing, but ask them to either split up certain roles or responsibilities, as long as it's still life-saving. We don't want to put resources where somebody's not going to be able to, get them if they're in need help. The BCFFA is right now working with mountain and rural fire districts to come up with a list of priorities that they agree to put forward this grant. Unfortunately, Chief O'Brien, who's the president, got called off to a fire up in Wyoming, and he's been there for 2 weeks. He'll be there for another week. And he's, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So cell signal's been limited, but he and I have been talking. He's going to get back to me next week with that list, which I intend to share with this committee. But I do think that if we can come up with a question that sort of gets to that, we're kind of beyond the stage of just asking for the stuff you want. And
Wait.
now we have to think about what's best for the whole region.
Is it a question or is it guidance that we want to provide before you even start working on the application?
I would like to include it before we launch it. Again, I was hoping to have that before tonight to talk over with this group, but I think we'll just have to do that by email when I get somewhat of a consensus back from the fire districts. And what I've heard so far is that PPE is really important. There's a lot of uniforms, whether it's for structure fires or wildland fires or other rescues. It's wearing out. There are new requirements, which is good, that they not have forever chemicals in them, safety of the firefighter. So, but it's expensive to replace that for any firefight, so maybe that's one of the priorities this year, where everybody tries to outfit their volunteers and their paid staff with up-to-date equipment. There was another piece. I mean, the popular thing to ask for is vehicles. Everybody wants a new vehicle. But that gets expensive pretty quickly. One thing I also wanted to tell you is that we were fully funded this year. Initially, the sheriff's office had taken $1 million out of the grant program to get their radios up to the spec where I mean, their infrastructure at the sheriff's office up to date. But the commissioners have now backfilled that money. So we have $2 million going into the fall where we thought we only had $1 million. So $2 million is a pretty good amount of money. We haven't awarded that much in one round before. So go ahead, Rick.
Things we had discussed very early in the process, maybe the first round, was encouraging agencies to work together toward common goals and common asks. And, the BCFFA kind of took over that role and said, you know what, everyone gets radios. And then, it was, okay, everyone's going to get this new software to help with, childhood medical dosing. And, I think we've kind of stepped away. I love Harry's question. And I also love his comment earlier about saying, with that one question about, no, we know that you respond to everyone, but other than that, how are you? And I love what he just said a moment ago. The the idea of folks working together, proactively suggesting that agencies work together or have common goals, might be something that's a level down from the BCFFA and a level up from individual agencies, and it might be something we can present up front.
Explain that a little bit more, Rick, if you could.
Oh, I wish I could. This is such a smart, articulate group, and I feel so dumb in your presence. I'm just, as part of the instructions, as part of the encouragements for what we're asking, we want to encourage agencies to work cooperatively toward common goals and common purpose. I mean, we're all kind of in it for the same thing, so why not see how we can join forces and maximize the benefit of this $2 million?
That statement you just said was beautiful.
That's
That
right.
was beautiful. We want to encourage. And I think that it helps to lead people, for the group to lead people into what we want to see. I think when we articulate those things, people are able to say, okay, we want to include these key points in there. That's what they're asking. These things are, all grants are weighted toward that. And so you're trying to meet the requirements of everything. But I think that statement that you made, Rick, was great. We want to encourage applicants to work with other agencies and to collaborate. So if that's even in the instructions or something like that for the grant, to lay it out for folks. I think for folks who are looking for grant awards, it's important in some cases to just spell it out. And and if they read, follow directions, then they're going to try to include that stuff and understand that will help their grant process better.
I know we even went so far in the very beginning, we wanted to kind of prioritize or reward groups that were willing to partner and collaborate. We just didn't get a lot of takers on that. And I mean, this could be an opportunity for us to revisit that and make it so that those kinds of collaborative grants requests are given an extra point or whatever that they're because I know the resources, because they are limited, if we can somehow increase the area that can use them, the more we can do that, the better.
I think that was well said, Barb, and articulating that exact point that additional consideration is given to those groups who work cooperatively, might encourage a little more participation.
Yeah, I think it's like make it a carrot, not a stick, which is I think what everyone's saying, right? Encourage it. We don't want to ding people because I think we've also had rounds where we barely got enough requests to give the money out. And just knowing what I've learned from this group is, just given it's hard for a radio signal to get across a mountain pass. It's also not easy for people, right? To sometimes these collaborations,
Right.
like we don't want to put undue stress or force something when also we're trying to make sure that the county's safe and protected and has the resources it needs. So I would think it's like a bonus if you
Mhm.
can do it, encourage it, maybe call that out when we do the communications and the PR around it. These are collaborative grants. Call those out in a special section versus just putting them kind of all in a list. And then I was also wondering, do we send out, is it easy to link to existing or recent awardees so that folks can see? So when we put out and say it's open, do we include a link that says like, here are the past awardees?
I can certainly do that going forward.
It's just an interesting, like for folks to look and see like what we have funded, make it easy for them. And then
Yep.
if we get to a space where, yes, we have some collaborative grants, you can call those out. Like this is what a collaborative county grant looks like. Someone's like, well, what is that? How hard is it? Because I wouldn't want someone to just kind of, oh, we can't do it, forget it. You know, I don't want to create a barrier.
Maria, that's a perfect point. And the BCFFA is a perfect example of a cooperative effort that benefited so many agencies across. And when you look at the dollar amount that was given for those radios, that's a
Yeah.
huge chunk of change. And that was someone saying, you know what, let's do something for the good of everyone.
Mhm.
And being able to point to that and saying, hey, here's a perfect example of how working
Yeah.
together gets you more than what you're asking for.
And is BCFFA is Boulder County Firefighter Association? Okay.
Yes, and it represents the rural and mountain
Okay.
groups, right?
I
There's a
do remember
separate
this.
group
Yeah, I
for the
remember the
cities.
radios. I forgot that was the acronym for the.
Yeah, there's another group, and somebody will have to remind me of the name, but it includes the city fire districts plus like the big one like Mountain View.
It's the
Does anyone
Boulder
know?
Firefighters Consortium.
Thank you, the
Hmm.
consortium. Yeah.
BFFC, Boulder Firefighters Consortium.
I think so. Doug might know better than me because he's in a city department there.
And I've heard the sheriff's office refer to them as the consortium. So I
Okay.
think they're kind of the ones that are well funded. Some of them have applied, and because we haven't had a very competitive pool, we've been able to fund those. But the other thing, I think that if we get far more or a request for more dollars than we have to give out, those probably are not going to be, they're going to fall down in the list because they have other funding sources.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the BCFFA is kind of the group that this is really targeted to help. Yeah, okay, these are really great ideas. So I'll take a stab at rewording these and adding in something, bringing back that idea of collaboration. So it's not to say you get dinged if you don't, but maybe there's a little bit of an incentive if you do find a way to cross-pollinate some of these resources. But I'm hearing also what you said, that like Left Hand has a really big area. Maybe they need something because there's the closest next fire department just couldn't get there in time, something like that we don't want to put lives in danger just because we think it should only be in certain areas, some level of service or equipment.
I think
So
it's
you've got a
tricky.
lot on your plate.
I think it's tricky too because I think people can be like, oh, we'll share it. And where does it live? So when you're
Right.
talking about individual supplies, that's a challenging thing. But I think even just getting their mindset in that, like most of these, even Ward, they're not operating like an island. They have other collaborative agencies that are coming in, emergency services and things like that. So just even getting the mindset of folks, of these items that you're using, how do they work with those agencies that you liaise? So even if it's living in your fire department, how is that, the services that you provide, able to, collaborate with who you collaborate with?
And I think a couple good examples of that have been the fire departments that have asked for the extrication equipment because like Lafayette said they will go into, because Lafayette is bordered by unincorporated and rural areas, they will go out of their district to use that equipment because they have a trained team that can do that. So even though the equipment lives in the city of Lafayette, you know, the promise was that it will be deployed. The same with City of Boulder. They're not just going to keep that equipment. In fact, they're encouraged to use that equipment outside of their city boundaries. Another area that we should look into this is sort of the cistern idea. Can we put, if we're going to invest in cisterns and they're expensive, you know, the one request we got was for $300,000. Can we put it where multiple agencies could access it if they need it? You know, at some sort of juncture of overlapping fire districts. So I do think that there's sort of natural things that lend themselves to that cooperative use. And then I think it's hard to share, you know, a vehicle if the vehicle and the keys live in, you know, one office and unless they, it's like co-parenting, unless they trade it off every weekend or something. But, you know, we don't necessarily want to get into the weeds to that extent. But it just, I mean, I think this discussion just shows how much there's a lot of weighing of priorities and the usefulness and the amount of money, and you've all done a tremendous job doing that. And I think we're just continue to improve the process as we go forward.
Barb, one other piece of guidance I wanted to ask about was I felt badly last year for the groups that made very, very small requests. And I always assumed, oh, they didn't realize they could ask for more. I would like to encourage those to request more and think more aggressively. And perhaps there's a way of putting something in there that says, you know, here's an average size grant for this. And if I'm writing my grant for my group and I was going to ask for 10,000 and I realize the average size grant given out is 25, I might be a little more ambitious.
And I've had follow-up discussions about that too. There's sort of two lines of thinking. One is, what is it? Something rewards the bold. That
Fortune favors the bold.
yes, that those that did ask for more ended up getting more, and that has served as sort of a precedent. But I will come up with an average. I don't know how helpful that's going to be because the average little, like, you know, I guess it's always the average or mean, but I'm happy to provide that when I send out the announcement. I also know that the fire districts have been talking amongst each other and to the BCFFA and saying we're finally getting the game a little bit better, you know, that we know now that it's okay if we ask for more. And to some extent, some districts have a hard time getting more money in one or too much money in one round. That the purchasing, all of that stuff. So, you know, we've had a few that have come back both rounds versus just one round. But there is a little bit of their learning. We're all learning what to put forward. And I do think we'll see a little bit more aggressive request. They were sort of told, not by this committee or the county, but by the BCFFA in the first round, like, don't ask for too much, you know, because the radios was the really big first purchase. It was over $1 million just for those. But we can do more, to your point, Harry, to give them an idea that they don't have to ask for 10, 25,000. They can ask for about 100,000 is usually, if you divided it up, you know, 2 million divided by the 2021 eligible fire districts, that's about 100,000 each.
I think that's great guidance for these
Okay.
groups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll make that clear.
I
And
think to share, that's another reason to share and make it easy for folks to find past grants because just
Yeah.
maybe you're going to say the same thing, Rick, like just some projects, one we had, like they only needed $3,000, like ask for that. And when you need 50,000, hopefully it's there, but I know average, we all know, I think averages are tricky because you end up with this number in the middle that nobody's getting. When you have a couple small ones and you have a huge one, someone got a truck, someone almost got a cistern, you know.
Right.
It's a good idea. I still think it was a
Right.
good idea. I just
Well,
want
And
to.
that's,
yeah,
I think, go ahead, Rick.
and what's also nice about the committee is we have the ability to scale up and scale down, to go to people and say, hey, that's a really good ask. Are you sure you don't need more? And we've done that. We've actually gone back and increased the grants for those who under asked. And we, and part of the questionnaire is saying, okay, if all the funding's available, can you scale down? Well, if more funding's available, can you scale up?
Yeah, I don't know if we want to give
No, I'm
expectations,
not saying that, but I mean, the
but no, I
committee,
get, yeah,
has the opportunity to help distribute this money in a way that can help the maximum amount of people.
and I think that's a great point, and it's really nice to be in a position that there's that much flexibility, that it's not like, oh darn, you should have asked for more because we would have given it to you. We've actually gone back and said, we can give you more if that'll help. You either respond to more people or do more training or whatever. And so I'm grateful to all of you for thinking along those lines.
I think we'll still get the big asks, but I also, I mean, there's been a lot of dreams that have been met, with these trucks. And so I think you're still gonna have folks who are gonna, go for it. But I think it also reminds, especially because we have gone back and said, can we give you more, please?
Right.
That may inspire them to understand that it's like, you don't have to be as meager as
Mhm.
you might be feeling like, oh well, we don't want to be greedy, and then we'll make sure to get it. There's a kind of middle ground in there where there's too much. And so I do think it's important to understand that that question about partial funding, of like, hey,
Right.
we might not be able to do it, so really give us your priorities so that we can meet those if you are asking for quite a lot. But it's not even Stevens. So some people are
Right.
going to ask for a ton and some people are not. But I think it's good to inspire them. And I think the juices are flowing, so they know, seeing that
Right.
have gone back, and they all talk, so they all know what people are getting. So I have to think we're going to have folks who are inspired, like, this is our year for the brush truck.
Right. Yeah, and I will make it very obvious. I'll categorize what has already been given out and to whom and for how much, and so they can look at that and get an idea. And I do think that um and the more of these we do, the more of that kind of will get easier on both the awardee and this committee to determine how to break up that money. All right, well, it's almost 7:30. I appreciate you all staying on. I know I said I'd let you go early this this evening, but this has been a tremendous, really great discussion, and you've given me a lot to work with. So I'll start reworking some of this, bring it back out to you for some comments, and we'll go from there. Does anybody have any final remarks? Okay. Well, we won't see each other in person until October. Um, but as always reach out and we'll keep in touch in other ways. Thanks again for all your input, and welcome aboard to our returning and our new member.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.